It's time for Recipe of the Day. So I have to be honest with you. When I decided to develop a turkey meatloaf recipe, I did not think it was going to be very good. I was trying to make the best possible turkey meatloaf that I could, expecting to not love it, but just think it was a good alternative for people who don't want to use beef in their meatloaf. Well, I somehow surpassed all of the problems that I envisioned and came out with something so good that I literally stand in the fridge snacking on bits of it while trying to decide what I want to eat. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I want a snack right now. I'm going to snack on this turkey meatloaf. It is amazing. It is great, sliced thinly, like the leftovers, cold, sliced thinly and put into a sandwich. It is wonderful, of course, hot right out of the oven when you cook it. It is just full of great flavor. It is perfectly juicy and it holds together great. Like I am to the point where I might just make turkey meatloaf every time I want to make meatloaf. That's how good this is. So how do you make this meatloaf? There are a few keys to making it perfect. The first is, as always, as I always say, do not overwork the meat. Whenever you're dealing with any kind of ground meat, you want to mix it as little as possible. I have a tip for helping with that I will run through. There is not a lot of moisture being added to this meatloaf. Even though we're trying to get it juicy, we don't want to add a lot of stuff that's going to contribute to it falling apart. It needs to hold together. We're adding a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, so the liquid that we're adding adds lots of meaty flavor. And then I'm not adding any fresh onion or garlic. I find that the little bits of like clumpy things contribute to the meatloaf falling apart more easily, the cracking and splitting, all of that. So I use garlic powder and onion powder. And the bonus of using the powdered is that it's going to spread very evenly through the meat and flavor it very evenly. 2 more quick essential tips before I dive in. Actually, let's make that 3. First of all, I do not cook this in a loaf pan. I cook it on a sheet pan. And that is because I find that meatloaf cooked in a loaf pan, the juices come out of the meat and are kind of like stuck in that loaf pan surrounding the meat. It's a little messy and it's just not ideal. You do it on a loaf pan, any juices sort of drip away off to the side. The next tip is I do a 2-part cooking process. So it's lower at first so that it can cook through evenly, and then higher to kind of crisp up the outside and cook the barbecue sauce that's going on the outside in there. And then third is to take it out a little bit before it's done and let it come up to temperature so that we don't overcook it. Not overcooking the turkey meatloaf is going to contribute hugely to it not being dry. And then of course, letting it rest in that time also settles all those juices, stops them from simmering so that when you do slice into it, they stay in place and don't go running all over your cutting board. Okay, how do you make this meatloaf? Preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and then in a big bowl, you're mixing together 1 egg, those 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, a half teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of chili powder, a half teaspoon of garlic powder, half teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and a 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs. We are mixing that all together first really well till it's really well combined before we add our 1 pound of ground turkey. And that is so that we don't have to mix the turkey up very much. Everything else has already been well combined. We add the turkey and just mix until it is evenly colored with those spices and seasonings, and then we know it is mixed. And I'm just going to say, we are using the ground turkey here. You want a 93-7 mix at 7% fat, or 90-10. You do not want the ground turkey breast. That's going to be way too lean and dry for this one. So you're mixing in that turkey just until it's mixed. I've said this before. It's because ground meat has those nice sort of cylindrical threads going through it. It's those threads being separate from each other that adds to the nice, soft, gentle texture of ground meat once we cook it. If you smoosh those threads all together until like they're a paste, you lose that softness. So one of the keys to keeping anything made with ground meat nice and tender is to not overwork it. So you're not smooshing those strands together, or really not smooshing them too much. You're trying to keep as much lightness in there as possible. Okay, then you are lining a baking sheet with parchment paper, or you can use a silicone mat, and then you're transferring that turkey mixture onto the parchment and shaping it to a 6-inch by 3-inch loaf that's about 1.5 inches high. So this isn't a huge loaf, and that is kind of important, right? Because then it's not going to be in the heat for as long, so the outsides aren't going to dry out by the time the inside is cooked. If you want to make more than this is enough for my family of 4, the 1 pound. 2 of us eat sort of a slightly larger portion. 2 of us eat a slightly smaller portion. It works, but there are no leftovers, and I want leftovers for that sandwich. So then you would do 2 loaves side by side. So you would double the recipe and then you would form your 2 loaves on the same baking sheet, leaving a couple of inches between them so the heat can circulate. And then they're going to cook for the same amount of time as given in the recipe. You don't double the cooking time. You're only doubling the amounts, especially if you are keeping those loaves separate and not putting it into one big monster loaf. You see what I mean? Okay. Then you're taking 2 tablespoons of barbecue sauce and spreading it all over the top and around the sides and everywhere on that loaf that you formed. And I have just used standard bottled barbecue sauce. My go-to is the Sweet Baby Ray's Original. We all like it. That's why I use it. But if you want to use something else, you can mix together equal parts ketchup and mustard with some smoked paprika, a little bit of honey. That'll do perfectly. Okay, that's going into that 350-degree Fahrenheit oven for 30 minutes. Then take it out and spread it with 2 more tablespoons of barbecue sauce all over again. Then it's going back into the oven, but this time at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. That way, that barbecue sauce can darken a little bit, form a little bit of a crust. You are cooking it then until the internal temperature is 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Use an instant read thermometer or a probe thermometer. That's going to help you here. It's going to be 8 to 10 minutes more after that original 30 minutes. Then you're taking it out when it's at 160 degrees Fahrenheit and you're letting it rest for at least 10 minutes. By then, the temperature will have come up to 165 degrees Fahrenheit and all those juices will have settled enough for you to slice it and serve. I really can't wait for you to try this one. It is so good. It blew my mind, totally changed my expectations of what a turkey meatloaf could be. I hope you are convinced as well. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get the link there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is April 28th of 2025. Also, if you love my recipes and cooking ideas, I have a great place for you to get more. Head to cookthestory.com/courses, COURSES, and you will see all of my little cooking courses there. You can sign up for them. There's one for like meal planning that's called Rotation Ready Recipes. There's one for Instant Pot. There's one for Air Fryer. You sign up there and you start getting more delicious recipes and ideas in your inbox straight from me. Head to cookthestory.com/courses to sign up now. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.